Travis Wingate Cell. We've got a homeless turf war this morning. Well, it's the Wednesday morning video, or Wednesday video. Sometimes it's later in the day when I bring it out, to give you a brief review for those of you who are lazy. The prophets are very much aware of me and are very much following all that I post online. They have been responsible for shutting me down on multiple venues, even YouTube. They don't like what I'm presenting. They don't go after the popular ex-Mormons. I'm not an ex-Mormon. I'm Mormon born and raised. I know Joseph Smith is good. I know he's a translator of Hebrew and Egyptian. I know the Book of Mormon is true, just not true as Mormons believe. There's a difference between belief and knowledge. To claim that you know something when all you do is believe is called bearing false witness. I was warned growing up not to stray past the church-approved curriculum because I would lose my testimony. You don't lose a testimony. You either have it or you don't. And it's not a belief, because anybody can have a belief. The question is, have you found out that it is true, or is it false? You haven't found out yet if all you do is believe. Seed to fruit. You believe in the seed being capable of producing the fruit. You know the seed produces fruit. Big difference. And if you only believe, you're not planting that seed to find out if it will produce fruit. And so, this camera is off. So Nelson keeps responding to me. He doesn't do it directly, he does it indirectly through the church website, church news, conference. And obviously he does not call me by name, does not call me out. It's the topics that he has reported. And so if you've been following along with my videos and then see Nelson's response, you will see that he is communicating with me. Yesterday, I did a video early in the morning, and I did a video the day before. Last night, he had an article posted responding to both videos, and he purposely coded his communication by what he left out, or had ordered left out, of the woman's article. Left out Doctrine and Covenants section 85, and he left out that the Doctrine and Covenants was decoded in 1981. If you've been following along with my videos, you will understand what he's communicating with me. And so, as promised, this video goes over the church's reincorporation in 1923. I have planned to post the pictures of that document. because it's in the public domain. Anybody can access it according to the Freedom of Information Act. Now the reason is, or the circumstances are what we're going to go over, and how that has an impact on the manner in which Mormons believe. Because yesterday I had a Nathan who was very upset by my videos. He doesn't understand I'm Mormon. I believe in I know Joseph Smith is good. Can't use believe. It's dormant now. And I know the Book of Mormon is true. And yet, because it's not according to his beliefs, he was furious. He went on a long paragraph rant on 3 separate videos, which after the first one you'd think he'd just give up and go away, saying, this is nonsense, I'm not watching this anymore. Nope, he had to watch more so that he could be more furious with me. I do not understand that behavior. I don't watch John DeLynne's videos because he upsets me. He's a psycho. Literally, he is PhD in psycho. Did you not know that? It's not a real science. It's fake. It's all about brainwashing people. And so, yes, I've probably lost ex-Mormons because I've come out and condemned John DeLynne. You know, Mormons don't like me because I don't lie for the church. Ex-Mormons don't like me because I don't lie about the church. And Christians don't like me because I don't lie about the church. Lying is a bad thing. Nobody should be lying. Nobody should be forcing others to accept the lie. But that's exactly what Mormons are doing. They only have belief, and they demand everybody accept their beliefs. And if nobody accepts their beliefs, they claim religious persecution. Alright, so we need to sum up church history for you up until the early 1920s, which is the main topic. We cannot isolate 1923 from the rest of church history. We cannot isolate it from what's been going on, what's been building up to this, because you will not understand it. There was a woman who did a thesis paper about the 1922 secret meeting of Mormon intellectuals. This has bearing on the bigger picture. She did not do the bigger picture. She focused on that meeting. Her name is Shannon Caldwell Montez. And yeah, John DeLynne got her and exploited her, as he is a psycho. But her information is still valid. It's just she took it out of context. And so it's yet another puzzle piece to the bigger picture of Mormonism. Like I said, I don't fear the truth. I pursued the truth because I followed the Book of Mormon and believed that Joseph Smith was true. I believed he was a translator. And so I pursued the truth no matter where it took me. I went beyond the church-approved curriculum. And yes, I didn't lose a testimony, I got one. It's just not accepted by Mormons. So, in the beginning, Joseph Smith Sr. in Vermont, starting out his new family, belonged to the New Israelites when they started up. He was Congregationalist. The New Israelites, started by Nathaniel Wood, began right next door in the next town over. He was excommunicated from the Congregationalists, but his message was such that it attracted Joseph Smith Sr. And we can see this in the naming of his children, because names have meaning. And your parents may not have named you according to the meaning of your name, but back in his day, parents did. They would even name them after biblical characters because of the story about such a person in the Bible. And so you don't see too many who are called Jezebel, for example. That then becomes a stripper name when she grows up. And so these are the kinds of things you look for. But in Nathaniel Wood's Congregationalists, the New Israelites, they believed that they were the literal descendants of the house of Israel, the 10 tribes. And that Hebrew was the angelic tongue, but not just any Hebrew as just a language in and of itself. It was Jewish mysticism. Jewish mysticism incorporates Hebrew as a coded language. And I've gone over that in other videos, so I'm not going to go over it here. This is already going to be long enough as it is. Also involves what's called the tree of life. And I've gone over that. And 180 years from the time Joseph Smith ran for president and was murdered. He knew, because of his father's Jewish mysticism. We also know, because of the naming of his son, Hiram, that he had become a member of the Yorkites Freemasons. There's a difference between York and Scottish, but you have to not be lazy. You have to do the work. The Scottish Rites are your 33-degree Masons. York Rites are your Knights Templar. And again, you can't be lazy. You have to know that the Knights Templar are your Friday the 13th, the Holy Grail, the bloodline from King David, about Solomon, the future Messiah, mortal, Egyptian gold plates buried in the ground. See? I know I don't believe anymore. It's dormant. But Mormons don't like it. And so when he came to Palmyra, Joseph Smith worked with Martin Harris on his farm. That's how they knew each other. Joseph Sr. in 1818 became a master mason in Canandaigua, New York. This is where Captain William Morgan stayed to write his books that would expose the Scottish Rites Freemasons and the threat to America. Now again, you can't be lazy, you have to do your research. The Batavian Press had to publish something with his name. He never finished. And so the book was the first 3 ranks in Freemasonry, including the Master Mason and his duties and responsibilities. We can use that to know exactly Joseph Smith Sr.'s duties and responsibilities in Canandaigua, New York, where William Morgan was writing his book about the threat to America. In the York Rites, about the Knights Templar and Egyptian gold treasure plates buried in the ground. Again, I know I no longer believe, it's dormant. Mormons don't like my knowledge, my testimony, because of their beliefs. Heber C. Kimball exposes himself as the enemy. He and Brigham, thanks to the guy who published a brand new book on Brigham Young, we now know that Brigham Young's motives for joining the church was revenge for the death of his wife. The church didn't heal her. She died. Brigham then joined the church. It's a clear-cut case. The author, however, said, "Oh, wasn't Brigham Young so faithful for attending church for 3 years?" People didn't wait that long to join the church back then. Parley P. Pratt, for example, read the Book of Mormon overnight, wanted to join after finishing. And so Sidney Rigdon, from linguistic science, it's a real science, not like psychos who are fake and fraudulent and are purposely destroying America with their confusion, their misinformation and disinformation campaign. Linguistic science has shown Sidney Rigdon is the major author of the Book of Mormon. Nobody has confirmed the author of the 116 pages. That's me who's done that. There have been those who have suspected, but they've not gone so far as to declare it. It's Joseph Smith Sr. And so when you read sections 3 and section 10 of our Doctrine and Covenants, you see how it's coded. Because Joseph Sr. knew Jewish mystical coding and, as a Mason, knew Masonry coding. Both are in the Book of Mormon. Both are in the 116 pages. Jewish mysticism and Freemasonry coding. Remember, Nephi gets to the Promised Land, which is an Exodus pattern throughout the Book of Mormon. Builds the Temple of Solomon. Code. Now you may be thinking, well, wait a minute. The first vision. Jesus visiting America. Again, I've gone over this with you. Constantine, 325 AD, CE correctly, holds the Nicene Council, forces the bishops to attend and unite. Rome had failed to conquer these various congregations. Constantine devised a new plot. If you can't conquer them, control them. He forced them to unite into one creed, which became the Nicene Creed. They couldn't decide which nature and character of God would win out over the others. Constantine, in his fury, created a brand new Greek word, homoousios, and said, "This is now your God." Jesus then became historical. Constantine then went around Israel and Jerusalem and started designating historical events for each of the places. This is the birth of this new historical Jesus. This is the crucifixion of the historical Jesus. This is the burial tomb of the historical Jesus, etc., etc., etc. The Gospels were not history. They were apocalyptic, just like John's Revelation. They just didn't have beasts and dragons. It is prophecy of the latter days. And so there was no resurrection. That's why there are still ancient burial mounds with children who didn't get resurrected. Not too many people like that video, I guess. Of course, it's hard to tell these days because nobody watches my videos because YouTube purposely, through their analog program, shuts me down under orders of the church. And so thus the church commenced. Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball purposely joined for revenge. Heber, revenge for the anti-Mason movement. Again, if you're going to be lazy, that's the whole thing with William Morgan. Heber C. Kimball, in his Masonry subject or topic in his Wikipedia page, exposes that he knew all about what was going on and purposely joined the church to overthrow it. They recruited, as they were missionaries, those of the Scottish Rites who were pissed about the anti-Mason movement. They wanted revenge. And so here come Brigham and Heber saying, we know the guys responsible. Join us. We're going to conquer them. They became known as the Danites, the judges. The purpose was to infiltrate with numbers, become popular and accepted in the Mormon community, then rise up in the ranks, take over leadership positions, and then take over the church. That's the practice that William Morgan was warning about with the Scottish Rites. That's how they did it with that group. That's how the Illuminati does it. That's the original terrorist organization that was involved in the threat to America back then. Their symbol is the inverted pentagram of Lucifer. chosen from Isaiah. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. That's why they are the Illuminati. Light bearer is Lucifer. Their intention is to destroy religion. And emerge with the enlightenment of science. Science is good and true, but it can be used for violence. And that's how they chose to use science, to destroy. And so, yes, Joseph Smith warned us that they were planning on a coronavirus. Section 45, verse 31. This is why the Republicans have the inverted pentagram on their elephant since the Nixon campaign. And are purposely allowing the spread and escalation of the virus, and are now pushing for anti-vaccination. I can't remember which state it was that was reported on yesterday, has banned all vaccinations for children, not just the coronavirus vaccination. This is the Republican Party. This is MAGA. They've already denied people's right to vote now. If you do not vote MAGA from now on, your vote will not count. Because all the Republicans have to do in each state is say, hey, we're concerned there might be something wrong with the election. We need to audit it. And then they can throw out votes at will. That's what the Supreme Court decision recently was all about. America has fallen. 19 July 1840, Joseph Smith warned us of the threat to overthrow America. Where did he get that from again? Oh yeah. Mormons instead chose to aid and abet in the overthrow of our government. Why? Brigham and Heber. They paid for and ordered the assassination of Joseph Smith. They made sure John Taylor and Willard Richards, who were of the 12, would be in Carthage jail with Joseph to make sure that they were assassinated. Joseph and his brother. And sure enough, they were. Unfortunately, because of the pistols that were left behind, that exposed the forensic evidence that the churches claim that it was just the mob is not true. Oakes even published a book as he tried to confuse the issue, but in reality exposed what really happened. Because Joseph chased out the mob. So who shot Hiram? And why is it that John Taylor was shot if he was hidden from the mob? Yeah, I've already done those videos. Joseph Smith used 3 balls from his 6-shooter that he was given by Wilcock, I believe his name was, who visited the jail. And the mob ran back out, tended to the wounds. Joseph Smith heard the gunshot from my 3rd great-grandfather's single shot that was left behind for Joseph, John Solomon Fulmer. And Joseph then turned into the room, saw his brother lying on the ground, and saw John Taylor hovering over his body. Joseph instantly fired the remaining 3 balls at John Taylor, hitting him in his pocket watch. And John fled under the bed. Joseph Smith then went over to his brother, mourning over his dead body, as Willard Richards, while going out for wine, also obtained his own pistol. Again, he was there to make sure Joseph and Hiram were murdered, and came up behind Joseph Smith and shot him in the back, and then dumped his body out the window down to the well, where the mob then got their rifles and shot over and over. If you don't understand how rifles are different from pistols, again, are you going to be lazy? Brigham Young, in 1838, made his first attempt to coup the church. Got Joseph Smith arrested, was hoping that this time it would finally go to trial. Joseph Smith would be found guilty and locked up in prison. Nope. But during the time he was in jail, in Liberty Jail, he and his Danites chased out the leaders of the church. Nobody else has designated this time period. Nobody understands its significance. And so I'm the one who designated this event as the leadership crisis. If you've heard about the succession crisis with the murder of Joseph Smith, well, this is the leadership crisis in 1838. Thomas B. Marsh left. I want nothing to do with this Danites. And so Brigham Young usurped authority he did not have as a mission president, with only the keys of Peter, James, and John, not section 10791 of Moses for the first president. Why did Nelson take a photo with idol god Peter at the Vatican Temple? To let Mormons know those are all his keys are as president of the church. If you do not know, the Pope is translated as bishop. The Pope is a bishop of bishops. And so cardinals select the next pope with the passing or removal of a pope. But that's as far as his authority goes. He's not an apostle. He's not the position of the historical Jesus. Acts 15 has James, the brother of Jesus, taking over for Jesus in Jesus' absence, as he has more authority than Peter. Acts 15. Women were also involved in the church back then. Romans 16, when correctly translated from the Greek. Servant is actually deacon for Phoebe. And of course, Junia. That had been a cover-up. The Catholic Church kept trying to say, oh no, the female ending is actually male. Nope, they found a shrine where Junia is female. That's why Christian churches are now letting women into the priesthood to be pastors and such. It's because of that shrine discovery. But Oakes insists women will never have the priesthood again. Joseph Smith gave it to you on the 17th of March, which was the same date in 1839 when Brigham Young used authority he did not have to excommunicate Thomas B. Marsh for not coming back and standing trial. I mean disciplinary court hearing. and 1842 was women. They were given priesthood, not just for the temple, as is currently ascribed to women. Women have priesthood power and authority, depending on their faithfulness, obviously, to bless others by the laying on of hands, with washings. There was the one woman who would do washings and anointings with blessings. Back in those days, washings were naked. If you do not know this, that in the temple, the Mormons used to be naked. When I started, we had a shield that was like a poncho, a white shield, but we were naked underneath. And when we got to the final part, the part where this is the garment given to Adam and when he was found naked in the Garden of Eden, and it was changed to Adam and Eve when they were found naked in the Garden of Eden, and represents the garment of the holy priesthood. Inasmuch as you are true and faithful to your covenants, it shall be a shield and a protection to you against the power of the destroyer until you have finished your work on this earth. Yes, I often helped ordinance workers. Was a veil worker for some time with the Jordan River Temple closing for repairs and renovation. But my favorite part is the part about Lucifer duking it out with Heavenly Father. Adam, 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 where art thou? I heard thy voice and hid myself because I was naked. Who told thee that thou was naked? Love that part with Lucifer. I have been doing that which has been done on other worlds. What is that? Yep, awesome. But I digress. Brigham Young changed the temple with the passing of Joseph. He changed the Book of Mormon with the passing of Joseph Smith. He added magic underwear. He added the garden and creation stories in the endowment session now. Wilford Woodruff, in his final testimony on a new audio device, after failing or not doing it correctly the first time around, was given a text to read for his testimony, his final testimony before he died. And in that testimony, confesses that the original Joseph Smith endowment was just washings and anointings. Washings are for high priests, as Joseph Smith had the high priest quorum for those who were washed in the temple. Then the anointings, Joseph had an anointed quorum for those who were anointed in the temple. We don't have either quorums, especially no longer a high priest group under Nelson, as he got rid of it when he announced that he was financially involved with Russia against America and told everybody to stay off the news, because we were going to hear some things. Now, $32 billion worth of things have laundered money into the stock market. And so Brigham Young also went around to the women, and if you did not know, giving women priesthood was huge, because women did not have rights and freedoms back then. Women were property of their husbands. If a woman was not married, she needed someone to take care of her. She was not allowed to own her own property or run a business. Yes, there were those few examples, but women were not considered human in the Constitution. Just like blacks were only a third or something human. And so there needed to be amendments. But the women's suffrage movement was required, and the civil rights movement was also required before our government finally said, fine, women are human too, and are no longer property. And so back in those days, what are all these women to do? Well, Brigham Young knew it's called human sex slavery and trafficking, where you involve women in sex slavery as they were property, as they were used for sex in polygamous marriages. And again, I went over with you, I think it was the 21st of June, 1841, where Brigham Young claimed that he had received revelation on his England mission that polygamy was supposed to be started. Heber was already practicing polygamy in secret, as with the Danites, and Bennett, who wanted to be a Danite but was rejected when he got excommunicated by Joseph Smith for adultery. As a medical doctor, he was giving women drugs to cause abortions, to justify having sex with them. and of course the Book of Mormon and everything all condemn polygamy. And I've gone over how Brigham Young purposely framed Joseph to blame him for what Brigham Young wanted to do. It was illegal to practice polygamy, and the Smiths had nothing to do with it. But in Brigham Young's statement, even though he lies that it was him who received revelation in Windows just did a forced update, so I'm not using it anyway right now. And so he was already practicing polygamy, or adultery rather, prior to his little mission journeys where he was going around recruiting Scottish Rites Mormons, or to Mormonism. He was also having sex with their wives while they were out working in the fields. He had a nasty habit of cheating or committing adultery. Heber as well. But Heber had a second actual wife in 1829. Kept that under wraps from Joseph the whole time. In 1842 or 3, Brigham Young, while Joseph was again on the run for the William Boggs thing that Brigham and Heber ordered Orrin Porter Rockwell to do, they blamed Joseph for that instead. And so Joseph was on the run, so he was not there to do any such polygamous sealing. But Heber had a third wife during that time, by Brigham Young, who did not have the key of Elijah. He only had the keys of Peter, James, and John for missionary work. He kept usurping authority he did not have, kept exalting himself, Joseph Smith called him Judas on several occasions. Brigham Young, in this document I'm referring to, says that he would laugh in Joseph's face, mocking him for being some dumb kid, although they were pretty close in age. I think he was 1801. Joseph was 1805. And so Brigham was able to recruit women through polygamy. I think I need to bring up, he said in the talk that Joseph had never conceived of polygamy. So even though he's lying that he got revelation in England, and he's lying that he told Joseph in 1841, and he's lying that Joseph Smith implemented it in 1843, he is telling the truth that Joseph Smith knew nothing of it. That's how you are able to discern the truth when somebody is lying to you, because they sort of disclose truth. That's why police interrogate criminals, so that they can obtain the truth from the lies that they are telling. And Brigham Young obviously had his Danites following him, and so they left the country. This is the sex slave trafficking part. Came to the Mexico territory, murdered the native indigenous people, and established the kingdom of Deseret with him as king. The Nauvoo Temple, in January, before it was dedicated, he was anointed king. That was the second anointing that you've heard about in the church. Joseph really didn't have it. It was Brigham Young. He created it. Because the first anointing, you're already made a king. You're already made a Christ. Because remember, Jewish mysticism. Jewish mysticism involves mortals becoming Christ-like, becoming Christs. King David was a Christ. Moses was a Christ. All the kings of Israel and Judah were Christs. That's the Jewish understanding of Christ. They referred to it in our English tongue as Messiah. You will find Messiah in the Book of Mormon. And so when you understand the difference, that the Book of Mormon says right up at the beginning, this is written in the understanding of the Jews, the learning of the Jews, language of the Egyptians. And then you see Messiah, and you see that we're going to tell you about the true Messiah. And then you see Gospels Jesus that was made historical by Constantine. Yeah, something's up. There's code in them there books. And so yeah, the first vision doesn't call him Jesus, calls him a personage, and says that the Constantine Creed is an abomination in my sight. The historical Jesus is an abomination in my sight. So when Jesus meets with his wife outside of the tomb, yes, that was his wife. That's why he called her woman. You call women women because they've had babies. So Mary had babies in order for Jesus to call her woman. And why is she always around Jesus? It's because they were married and had babies, because he's mortal by the original author. as he's not a real history, he's a prophecy of the future Messiah. And yet, woman has been redefined in our day as a slang term of sexism. No guy dares call a woman anymore. And so if you didn't have a child, you were a virgin. That's how virginity was determined. So, in the days of 47, as we are 10 days from today, from the great celebration, the days of 47, 24th of July, this is the wrong place. I think this computer also requires it. Fine. It's only 30%? Why are you ringing on 30%? I hope they don't crash my computers with this update. Is this what the church is planning? Is this why Nelson wasn't concerned about today's video? He ordered Microsoft to do an upgrade on my computers. Don't be too surprised. He's ordered YouTube, and YouTube complied. And so, yeah, Brigham Young in 1852. 5 years later, the United States comes in and was wanting to make it a territory, and they did. Territory of Utah, which included extra what are now states. And so Brigham Young was dethroned as king. The church records try to claim that Brigham Young wanted the state of Deseret. It was a kingdom. Don't be fooled. And he was responsible for the Council of 50, the secret government to overthrow the government. Remember? Scottish Rites, anti-Mason movement, threat to America. Yeah. Heber and Brigham were a part of this. And this is what happens. When they get caught and exposed, they go underground, find another group to infiltrate. So after the anti-Mason movement, they went into the South, became Confederates. Civil War, trying to overthrow the government. And then the leader of the Confederates then started up the KKK, as other Confederates came and settled here in southern Utah, the land of Dixie, which Dixie is now being culturally pressured because they didn't want to do it on their own, to change the name of Dixie College. I can't remember if they've decided on a name or not yet, but the people are uprising. How dare you? We're Confederates. Death to America. The KKK then infiltrated Congress, and then that's why we were slow in getting into World War II, because those Nazis were their kind of people, as we had Nazi supporters with Poppy Bush's father, who supplied the gas to the gas chambers, if you didn't know that, and other companies that were involved, like Coca-Cola was selling to the Nazis, and all that. A big disgrace of America. We were not innocent of World War II, as there, of course, deniers that such a thing happened. Deniers? How could there be such a thing? And so, yeah, those neo-Nazi, or those Nazi supporters in KKK then became the GOP under the Nixon administration, which technically was McCarthy was the neo-Nazi, wanting to revive Nazism for our government, as he did the Red Scare of communism, which, a dichotomy which both are wrong. We're not supposed to be a party government. The Constitution says we're a constitutional republic, and we have never been a constitutional republic. We have always been a party government, which is communism. Even though fascism is a representative republic, which is what the conservatives, whether they were called Democrats during Lincoln's time, actually no, Lincoln was a Republican conservative. Democrats were, they switched them with the McCarthy era. The platforms changed. Republicans used to be the liberals, and Democrats used to be the conservatives. And so, and then GOP is now turned into MAGA. As Bannon, after succeeding with the 2016 election, then went over to Europe and changed the names again into globalists and populists. So that's how that all worked. The chain of the Illuminati. And so the Nauvoo Temple, that's why it has the inverted pentagram, the symbol of the Illuminati. Brigham Young was exposing it. Bennett, for example, the guy who got excommunicated for adultery, drugging the women to cause abortions so that he can have sex with them freely, he then went and formed an Illuminati order. And so, yes, they all knew about it. Joseph Smith was warning us about it. And so, Brigham Young also was Illuminati of the Scottish Rites. And so Albert Pike, he confirms it also, as he exposed, or the letter he wrote to Giuseppe Mazzini exposed how he was going to overthrow America and the world, and says that the Third World War will be to destroy Christianity, exposing it as the fraud that it is. It's not a history. What are Christians going to do? Oh no, faith crisis, because they have no knowledge. All the ex-Mormons who had a faith crisis, you had no testimony. You had no knowledge. You didn't lose your testimony. You never had one. That's why you had a faith crisis. If you had obtained an actual testimony by disregarding the church, going beyond the church curriculum approved, you would have gained a testimony and therefore would not have had a faith crisis. And so 1852, I should also bring up, since I'm throwing everything out there, as we're in an hour-long summary, April 6th, 1846 came and went. Brigham Young refused to dedicate the temple, the Nauvoo Temple, the Illuminati Temple. Why? Well, the Illuminati anniversary is May 1st. That's when it was dedicated. That pissed off Mormons, like Alpheus Cutler, for example, who was a part of the authorized High Council to excommunicate, which Brigham Young usurped. Yeah, Thomas B. Marsh didn't leave because of defending his wife over milk scrapings. No, it was the Danites. So that Brigham Young could become the president. And then Joseph Smith called him Judas for doing what he did. Talk in 1839 that you have to find on the Joseph Smith papers. Alright, so we're getting closer here. 1852, Brigham Young says, hey, Heavenly Father is Adam. And guess what? He had polygamous wives. We're now going to practice it openly, no more in secret. Because, remember, it's illegal. And as a territory of the United States, they have to conform and comply to the laws of the United States. Polygamy is a crime. They were practicing polygamy in secret. 1852, yeah, Brigham Young says, I don't care anymore. We're practicing it openly. And so he sends a death threat to the United States. They send the army in, prevents the Salt Lake Temple from being built for 40 more years. Yeah, I never got told that. That's not how we are taught in the church. We are always taught that the church were victims of religious persecution. No, he fled the country because he murdered Joseph Smith. John Taylor and Willard Richards did not testify in Joseph's trial. And their testimonies even contradicted each other. You'd think they would get together and say, hey, let's make sure our testimonies are the same. Nope. Yeah. So, anyway, it was Kimball who covered up the evidence there in Carthage jail. Spencer W. Kimball. Yeah, who is he a descendant of? The great-grandson of who? Why did he cover up the evidence there in the jail? Rather than saying, hey, here's the jail, we're persecuted, right? Religious persecution. The mob did it, right? Why did he cover up the evidence then? Yeah. They're also holding back the actual journal that gives us the accurate information that they're only allowing what has been allowed to be released. They will not release the full journal. What is in that full journal? What else does he talk about that he can expose for us? So, and yeah, polygamy was practiced openly. Brigham Young, did the tithing thing. With the Nauvoo Temple, dedicated on the anniversary of the Illuminati, with the Illuminati symbol on it, now required Mormons, in order to go through the temple for the endowment, to be a full tithe payer. That was the first protection racket of the church. Brigham Young created the church as a criminal organization with a protection racket, and thus missionary work was a pyramid scheme. All right there from Brigham Young. He's the originator of that. Isn't that great? And with the United States coming in, downgrading Brigham from king to governor, he couldn't behave as a governor. And so the United States had him replaced. And the church kept chasing out the governors, kept chasing out the judges. They don't want them in their town. And so the United States had to keep replacing them over and over and over again. This is a criminal organization. Don't be fooled. You can't claim the church is innocent in doing criminal violations of the law. Because it then teaches the youth in the church that, hey, as long as it's for the church, it's not a crime. This is a bad example that is being set for generations of Mormons to this day, as there is an underground criminal organization here in Utah. You have the church, that's the open criminal organization running the whole place, and because of corruption, there is a necessity of a counter-government and an underground black market economy. That's why they exist, is because of corruption of government. And the church controls the government here in Utah. We know this because, wow, the Illuminati again, their symbol on the Eagle Gate. Where does it point? Oh, the state capitol. Isn't that great? So yes, the federal judges are also compromised to the church, as the majority of them are Mormon. They're supposed to recuse themselves. But then who then presides over the church in cases? Yeah. Helaman chapter 6. And so the government finally says enough. The Edmunds-Tucker Act. So let me read from it for you. Congress naturally ignored the state of Deseret, and in 1850 organized the territory of Utah. Thus, the charters given by the Mormons to the Mormons are entirely valueless. And the Act of 1887, the Edmunds-Tucker Act, annals them formally. On Monday last, the flocks and herds of the church were demanded and surrendered. The infamous tithing yard itself, the scene of so much misery, is given up. The temple square, with the great buildings, wrung out of the people, is to be demanded. $4 million, they say, have been spent upon the temple alone. The tabernacle, endowment house, and assembly hall are also in this square. Thus it will be seen that the blow is aimed at the very roots of the system. Deprived of its money, the Mormon Church will be comparatively harmless. New recruits will cease to be imported. The pyramid scam. And the whole system of corruption and fraud will tumble about the heads of the leaders. And then, of course, President Grover Cleveland pardoned all of them for polygamy. But this was beyond just polygamy. There was corruption and fraud being committed by Brigham Young's organization. He was dead in 1887. This was, Wilford Woodruff's time now, as he was forced to stop polygamy. And instead, you get what's called the Reed-Smoot hearings, where the Mormon from Utah had to appear before a Senate committee hearing called the Reed-Smoot hearings, to explain why the practice of polygamy is still going on after you've been made a state in the Union, as you've sworn that you are not going to practice, as the church has been disincorporated. Do you know the difference between incorporation and disincorporation? The lawsuit of the Edmunds-Tucker Act doesn't refer to the church as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It refers to it as the former, because it no longer is incorporated. It no longer exists. Everything was seized. The Reed-Smoot hearings were 1904. And yeah, that's long after. And this starts trying to come alive. And so the church was in dire straits. But they still had their tithing, which infamous tithing yard itself, the scene of so much misery, the fraud, it was a protection racket. And yet it continued to be practiced. The windows of heaven were not real. There was no talk. It was all made up in that movie version at BYU. And there was a flood, though, that year. Destroyed the crops. Didn't bail out the saints with the blessings of heaven. So yeah, the whole thing is a lie. And Brigham Young had already started it. And so it was just continued. And it was through this protection racket of tithing that the church began to bail itself out of debt. They had to rent back certain of these properties. They don't mention the brothels. Regent Street used to be called Commerce Avenue for that very purpose. Orrin Porter Rockwell got the first brothel. They call it a hotel. Oh, that's so cute. Yes, a hotel. Best little whorehouse in Utah. Dolly Parton, the best little whorehouse in Texas. Yeah. So, yeah, this is what the church was dealing with from 1887 into the 1900s, as they were trying to bail themselves out. They were disincorporated. They were just a group of people that shared religious beliefs and reminiscing about how to get back their criminal operation. 1900 comes along as the Salt Lake bishop, Baptist bishop, Bishop Spalding, comes out with Joseph Smith as a translator. Condemns him for not being a translator. Brigham Young wanted nothing to do with the Egyptian documents. He wanted nothing to do with translation. He was Methodist growing up. That is important to understand. And so for him, yeah, Jesus was historical. And none of this Jewish nonsense for him. And so to have the Bishop Spalding come along, because they created the Pearl of Great Price because of that English mission president Richards, who had the Pearl of Great Price with him, and now it's the Pearl of Great Price because he decided to join Brigham Young's organization. And so with this, it set up the church for failure, as that became an exposed thing. And then, of course, In 67, you have the New York Times front page news, Joseph Smith is a fraud, showing Egyptian stuff on the front page of their paper. And then you get the rise of Mormon apologetics, and so, yeah, the church has been slammed for translation. Again, have faith, pursue truth, no matter where it takes you, and you will have a testimony that Joseph Smith is a translator. The various science fields are not following science. There's too much fraud being spread around by scientists in the various fields. And I know because I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I deciphered Egyptian petroglyphs because I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. And I've also discovered that the Bible came from translations of the Egyptian petroglyphs. That's why they're not real history. Again, truth will not cause a faith crisis. Trust the truth. Pursue truth. It will not crash your whole life. The truth will set you free. Trust the truth. Don't find security in lies. There is no security. And so then 1904, Reed Smoot hearings. You have to jump all the way to 1936, when finally a man by the name of R.C. Webb, that's his nom de plume, he's not Mormon, he just takes on lost causes. The church was a lost cause. Because of Bishop Spalding, he finally gave a response to Bishop Spalding. And it's the same president of the church, Heber J. Grant. I need to make sure it's not the president. Heber J. Grant approved and published it for him. Joseph Smith as translator. It's kind of fun and fascinating to read. It's just that he's not knowledgeable on Egyptian. He just learned a few things to throw in there. But yeah, it's fun. Good read. Good to have in your collection. Good luck finding it. You might be able to find it on Amazon if it's in print, or some used bookseller has it. 1905. Joseph Fielding Smith, president of the church now. Remember, women were property. Women were sex slaves in polygamy. Women were sex trafficked to Mexico territory. This is a criminal organization. Corruption and fraud. And Hiram's wife and son, Joseph Fielding Smith, were taken by Heber C. Kimball. And I'm about to burst out and cry here, as it was Heber who was the one who ordered and paid for Hiram's death, and then took his wife and child, and then brainwashed his child as he became the president of this corrupt and fraudulent church. It's a good thing we're 120 minutes into this video, because nobody's watching anymore, right? Dear God. So with Nelson, let's see if I can change the subject. Yesterday, having the woman put out the article purposely withholding certain things, but putting in things. 1921, the lectures on faith was removed. The reason I was told is that it did not conform to our doctrine. No. The church was making preparations for 1923. And they needed to get things set up for it. The lectures on faith does not agree with Christianity. So again, if you're going to be lazy, not read the book, that's on you. Like I said, we're already 122 minutes into this video. 1922, Shannon Caldwell Montez did her thesis on this secret meeting of intellectual Mormons. And I'll refer you to her interviews with John Delan. Psycho. Fake science of psychology. But yeah, she knows all about it, but took it out of context that I just gave you. Because these intellectuals were finding out that the church history was not history. Did not happen. Remember? The truth will not cause a faith crisis. But it caused a faith crisis to these guys because they didn't actually pursue the truth. They only learned that it's not history. The first vision, Moroni rather than Nephi, the plates, Book of Mormon as history. Nope. None of that is real. This is what they were panicked about. They had a faith crisis as the intellectuals of the church. They did not pursue the truth to learn about Jewish mystical coding and Freemason coding that is in the Book of Mormon, that is in church history, that is in the Doctrine and Covenants, that they removed the lectures on faith in 1921. That they did not understand that the Book of Mormon was coded. And so they had a faith crisis, and they held a secret meeting. And as she talks about, they met with church leaders. But as you can see, the church leaders were already planning and preparing for this. They already know. This is what Shannon did not understand. And so then we get to 1923. And I'm hoping I remember to put in the document. In fact, let's go over it with you. filed as number 16041. In case you want to do a Freedom of Information Act and request this document. Articles of Incorporation. You can find it online. It's in the public domain now. So you don't really need to do this process, but Articles of Incorporation of the Corporation of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. United States of America, State of Utah, County of Salt Lake. I, the undersigned, have been duly chosen. How was he chosen? Because it was not Joseph Smith's Section 103 or 107 verse 22 process. Yeah, now we give loyalty oaths after they're chosen other ways, through the criminal mob organization process. And appointed president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Incorporated, in conformity with the rights, regulations, and disciplines of said church, not the laws of the land, being desirous of forming a corporation, you mean reforming, for the purpose of acquiring, holding, and disposing of church or religious society property, for the benefit of religion, for works of charity, and for public worship, under and pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 3, Title 19 of the compiled laws of Utah, 1917. They had insiders in Utah to allow this to take place, because they were not in compliance still. On churches and religious societies, and all acts amendatory thereof, and supplementary thereto for that purpose, do hereby make and subscribe in duplicate the following. Articles of Incorporation. First, the name of this corporation shall be the Corporation of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It is now a business again, using religion as a front for their criminal operations. You know, like the Sopranos used sanitation. The church is using the church. They're still doing tithing, which is a protection racket, which is what Tony Soprano was doing as a sanitation worker, going around to the different businesses that they would take off their trash and say, hey, you want protection? Give us extra. Second, the object of this corporation shall be, and you do know tithing is fire insurance, protection from the latter-day burning, it's protection racket, shall be to acquire, hold, and dispose. The subject of this corporation shall be to acquire, hold, and dispose of such real and personal property as may be conveyed to or acquired by said corporation for the benefit of the members. We're chattel. If you understand the definition of chattel, in an economic sense, we are no longer members, as in members of the board, who have a say in the operations of the business. And yet I still see the rising generation of Mormons thinking that they can tell the church what to do and how they should do it. Just hilarious that they're so ignorant of this concept. No, you can't tell the church what to do. They will excommunicate you. Right, Nemo's friend? And, the psycho woman, psychologist, yeah, her too. You can't tell the members of the church that masturbation's okay. that it's healthy. How dare you? And the bishop who said, hey, I'm not going to ask personal sexual questions of children. Oh, okay, you're excommunicated. And then Protect LDS Children movement. Now the church has to change and has bishops reading from a script now. They can't go off script. Man, okay. Benefit the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a religious society for the benefit of religion, for works of charity and public worship. Oh God. Such real and personal property may be situated. You know, the welfare square, not until George Albert Smith with the Great Depression and after World War II. I'm not going to go into detail on that. Again, if you're going to be lazy, it's on you. Such real and personal property may be situated either within the state of Utah or elsewhere, and this corporation shall have power, page 2, without any authority or authorization from the members of said church or chattel or religious society to grant, sell, convey, rent, mortgage, exchange, or otherwise dispose of any part or all of such property. See, not only are we being hustled in the protection racket, we're now used as chattel. We can't build Zion anymore. We can't exercise our talents for the church because the church determines the path of the church. And there's more to talk about that subject. It's in the Book of Mormon though, but after talking and defining priestcraft for us. Third, the estimated value, pay attention, because this is how much the church got out of debt with the protection racket of tithing, with the corrupt and fraudulent organization, of which I hold the legal title for the purpose aforesaid at the time of making these articles of incorporation is $1,500,000. Remember, $4 million supposedly for the construction of the Temple of Salt Lake. Thus, they lost more money than $4 million. And by 1923, they finally got back $1 million of it through the protection racket of tithing. They got out of debt and then got a surplus of $1 million at the time of this incorporation. Fourth, the title of the person making these articles of incorporation is, and it's all caps, President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Fifth, the corporate seal shall contain the words, Corporation of the President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and an impression thereof is hereto affixed. And you can see the seal stamp, and then you see Heber J. Grant's signature, President of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And then the notary public, state. The stamp covers over the S. State of Utah, County of Salt Lake, SS, on this 26th day of November, 1923, before me Arthur Winter, a notary public in and for said county, personally appeared Heber J. Grant, who is known to me to be the person whose name is subscribed to the foregoing instrument as president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and duly acknowledged to me that he executed the same as such president. I'm not going to even try to guess as to his name. It doesn't have it printed underneath. It just says Notary Public. Could be any name. And then residing at Salt Lake City, Utah. My commission expires December 1, 1973. Wow, it's a long time to be a notary public. I wonder if he's dead by then. That's like 50 years later. Alrighty, so there you have it. The church is now reincorporated. But what? I mean, yes, they are still practicing the corruption and fraud of Brigham Young and his organization that was incorporated in 1852. But they have to appear as legitimate to the United States. And so they can't start up polygamy again. They can't do what the Edmunds-Tucker Act was accusing them of for corruption and fraud with the tithing thing. That was hilarious the way that was written. And so they don't have an interest in Joseph Smith. They know none of it was real history. But they don't know the truth. They don't want to go back to his organization then. They don't want to be Jewish or Jewish mystical. They don't care about Egyptian. They don't want to be translators. They don't even call themselves translators. Pay attention to conferences. I've been exposing it for you. Again, if you're not going to do the work and you're going to be lazy, no translator. Prophet, seer, revelator, and president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. No translator. They don't want it. They don't claim it. Even in the gospel topic essay of translation and historicity of the book of Abraham, they throw Joseph under the bus and say it was just revelation. But there's already revelator. Joseph Smith clearly separates them. Joseph Smith clearly, in the King Follett Discourse, says the Hebrew Bible is not translated from the Hebrew text correctly. The Hebrew text is wrong, not just the English translation of it. And then, of course, the Book of Abraham, which nobody understands how to translate Egyptian petroglyphs, which was what Joseph was doing, just as the Bible did. There are no signs in sign lists of the petroglyph signs. If you do not understand that, again, if you're going to be lazy, don't fear truth. Fear the reaper. Although Blue Oyster Cult says don't fear the reaper. You don't need to fear the truth. Because if you're watching this, and you're still watching, and you are now having a faith crisis, and you are lost, and you are confused, and you don't know what to believe anymore, because you're lazy, and you're not listening to my videos, not doing your research, all I can do for you is say, I testify the truth is okay. It will cause some tears, as you saw, because it exposes the corruption and fraud that destroyed and took over the church. But Joseph got nothing to fear from him. He was vindicated by Brigham Young, who framed him. But there was an emerging religion from 1900. They've existed previously, obviously. They're called evangelicals. In 1900, they sued and got it all the way up to the Supreme Court, demanding that creationism be forced to be taught in the public school systems. The Supreme Court shot them down. So, in retaliation, evangelicals went on an idol-worshipping campaign. There's an idol, there's an idol. It's evil, it's good. Worship that idol, worship this idol. Stay away from that idol, don't touch that idol. Evil. Porn, for example, was redefined by evangelicals. Artistic representations of the female body are now evil. It is now an idol god of demonology. That's what happens when you take an object and you ascribe good or evil to it. You are creating another god. Whether it be a god rather than the historical Jesus, which you're not supposed to do as Christians, but evangelicals were doing it, or creating Lucifers, demons, by saying, oh, these objects are bad. They're objects. They don't have morality. They're neutral. Neuter's different than neutral. They're objects. That's it. That's all. They have no powers. They have no abilities. You know, unless they're machinery that can actually do something by flipping a switch. But it's not a moral power. They cannot possess people. You know, it makes for a great movie. You know, there's that car one, the possessed car. What is it called? Is it Christine? I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. Cujo for killer demon dogs. But these are not real. These are fiction. And so evangelicals were going nuts. You aren't going to let us preach creationism in the school systems? Well, now we're going all out. Everything is idol worship. It's either good or evil, and we are the judges who determine which is which. And then the Idaho Mormons invented the television, Rigby. You still see it on the Welcome to Rigby, the invention of the TV. That then produced televangelists. My mom, I would catch her watching Billy Graham. He's not Mormon, Mom. Well, he says a lot of things that are true. Are you able to distinguish what is not true, though? Because your views tend to ascribe to Lucifer's idol-worshipping plan. Lucifer loves idols, remember? Oh, you're lazy? Delighteth in idols, I think it is. Alright, if you're lazy and you don't want to look it up, I'll look it up for you. You delight idols. Let's see. Yeah. 2 Nephi chapter 9, verse 37. Yea, woe unto those that worship idols, for the devil of all devils delighteth in them. Lazy people. And so, yeah. Do you believe in idol worship? Do you turn objects into morally good or bad? Creating gods and demons that you worship and fear? You're an idol worshiper. Yeah, porn. Yeah, Utah is all out on that, aren't they? Well, why? Why is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints that believes in the Christian historical Jesus believing in idol worship of evangelicals? Ta-da! 1923. This whole movement that is being set up for you here in this video. They decided to become evangelical. But they're not calling themselves evangelical, are they? They're still calling themselves by Brigham Young's name, organization. Now, Joseph, nope, Sidney Rigdon took that title. So Brigham Young had to come up with a different name title for his church. And so he found a talk by Joseph where Joseph said, oh, yeah, this Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He wasn't renaming it, but Brigham Young said he did to justify his renaming it. Again, he's Methodist. He believes in the historical Jesus. Joseph's Jesus was code, not real. Remember, the intellectuals in 1922 found out the first vision, Moroni rather than Nephi, and the Pleiades, and thus the Book of Mormon, are not real history. I know that there are hundreds of thousands who are viewing John DeLynne's videos, and by this woman, Shannon. You know this information. You know about the Tanners. You know about all this little things. But none of them put it all together like I am doing for you with all my videos. And this video is the summary of summaries. Because Nelson provided me with the 1921 lectures on faith. They removed it because it doesn't conform and comply to evangelical Christianity. This is what they were planning. They knew the church was a fraud. They knew they needed to reincorporate. They knew that they needed to get back on track to restore Brigham Young's organization. And now in the latter days, the false prophet has emerged and has done away with the high priest group, has declared that he has been working with Russia to overthrow this nation, has purposely caused the deaths of Mormons with the prophesied, predicted, the threatened, the warning of the coronavirus. Section 45, verse 31. The mission president from Bolivia was reported as having died yesterday in the church news, as I covered that. Nelson's got blood on his hands. He did not follow Moses because he doesn't care about Moses. He doesn't want anything to do with the learning of the Jews. He's hinge pointing. He's Christian. It's historical Jesus. And they're going to come out with what Albert Pike said is the doctrine of Lucifer in full view. On 8 April 2024 will be that sign, as the conference weekend will be when that unveiling that Albert Pike talked about will be made in the conference here at Temple Square, with the rededication of the Salt Lake Temple, with the inverted pentagram at the keystone of the doors of the Illuminati, of whom this threat was planned and orchestrated from the very beginning. They will unveil the new location of the idol god historical Jesus. The Russians will be the gathered house of Israel to Utah to replace us, because they got to kick us out. That's why they purposely escalated the temperature increase of the earth to cause the burning. They're purposely fulfilling the Bible prophecies of the latter days as the enemy of mankind, to show that the historical Jesus is a fraud, that he will not be coming from outer space on a flying horse to save us from destruction. And from that the church will emerge from the ashes to re-inhabit the desolate desert with their restored kingdom of Deseret, to institute polygamy as he had changed the law of chastity. Those, according to his law, section 132, which was not by Joseph. Again, if you're gonna be lazy, so there you have it. We're almost at 2 hours. So this is why it's important that people who do research on the church to find, some truth about how it's wrong, you have to look at the context. Put all the pieces together. They're out there. You just need to assemble them. The CES letter by Jeremy Runnels? Yeah. Well, he's got a lot of different stuff that's listed there. He doesn't put any of it together. He just thinks that the church is false and a fraud. Yeah, Brigham Young was, not Joseph Smith. So there you have it. Now you know why I've been doing these videos for you. Not just to bring you to the truth, but to bring you out of the great and abominable church. And as Nelson has been paying attention to my videos and responded to my video 2 days ago now about a coming shock to Mormons. Mormons' hearts are so hardened that there must be a shock to their system. And it will cause a faith crisis because they have no testimonies. And they will need somewhere to look to for answers, because the church won't be able to give it to them anymore. That's how big of a shock it must be. And so it's faith right now for me, because it hasn't happened yet. But I wouldn't bet against me. I've been right this whole time.